Welcome back for a new episode of the Copycat Stitch podcast. I'm Bailey. I'm the Copycat Stitch here on YouTube and Instagram, and I am so glad that you decided to join me today, whether this is your first time here or you've been here before. Thank you. I'm so happy to be able to share my knits, share my whips, share my yarn acquisitions, and it makes it so much more fun to have somebody watching and commenting and following along. So I have a little bit to talk about today. I'm definitely filming today because I feel like I have a deadline. I'm leaving for vacation. We're taking another road trip and we're leaving in a couple of days. So I wanted to wrap up as much as I could before we leave and talk about it because I'm going to make another video about my road trip knitting and my road trip yarn store stops and everything while we're away. But also because since we're going to be gone for a week and a half, I've actually been pushing to try to finish as many of my whips as I can. As of this point, I finished 2. I thought I would be able to do more, but I'm not going to be hard on myself about it. I did do a lot. So let me show you the 2 that I did finish. So last time I think I did introduce this one, but I had just barely started. This is a Loveland shawl by TL Yarn Crafts. It's kind of somewhere in between. I made this with this beautiful yarn. It's 2 different colorways from Megs & Co. in her sport base. This is not blocked, so this has a lot of work to do yet, but I just bound off and finished this, honestly, like half an hour ago. So I'm proud of myself for getting it done, but it's gonna grow a lot with blocking. Anyway, these 2 sport weight yarns, it feels so good. I cannot recommend this yarn enough. This beautiful variegated is called Public Market, and this tonal blue is called American Denim. And what I was saying is that this is sort of in between patterns because Toni Lipsey created the Loveland shawl with, I believe, a DK weight, and then she later created another version for fingering weight called the Loveland Light, but this being a sport base was somewhere in between, so I kind of tried to hybridize the patterns. In retrospect, I could have done some stuff differently, but I didn't know. I wasn't sure how far the yarn would go. I wish I had been able to do more stripes because part of the pattern is you do this great big solid portion of your color A and then you stripe in the new color before you start the mesh section. I think in her finished objects and her sample, her samples that she's created when making this pattern, there's a lot more stripes. And I did not guesstimate how much left of color A I had very well, and I ran out pretty soon, so I had to just jump into the mesh section. I wish I had done more stripes, but what's done is done. I don't think the finished piece suffers for it. I just wish it was a little more balanced. It's a bit scrunchy right now, but like I said, I'm going to block it. I think I'm going to block it pretty vigorously. There's a lot of room for growth here, and I think it's going to be so drapey and beautiful and just absolutely wonderful to wear once it's finished blocking. I'm probably going to get it, I'm going to wet block it and get it on the mats later today because I want it to be completely done and dry and finished before I leave for vacation in 2 days so I can wear it when I come back. Because I'm not going to wear it on vacation because I'm going to Florida and you don't need wool shawls in Florida, especially during what is supposed to be a February heat wave that I'm very excited about because we're actually going to get some hot weather while we're there. Another thing I will not be wearing in Florida is this Wallaby pullover that I finished. I bound off yesterday. I have a lot of thoughts about this one. I had a lot of difficulty with the pattern. It was in an issue of Vogue Knitting. I don't remember the author of the pattern, but I do have a lot of issues with the way it was written. It's not the way that I'm used to patterns being written. A lot of the terminology was confusing. There was a couple points where the math just didn't add up and I did not understand what she was trying to say. The increases and repeats and stitch counts before and after, I could not make them compute and had to make stuff up. As a result, some of my pieces were a little off in the end and I kind of had to ease them together. You can see that there's this, it's not actually a seam, it's like a detail. It's like a little bit of a rib detail and it goes on the front and the back. They didn't line up perfectly when I had finished my front and back panels and I kind of had to ease them together as I was stitching them to make it look like they do. And this has not been blocked either. Like I said, I just bound off yesterday. I should say what I made it out of. If you were here last time, you already know, but I made it out of Hobbii Winter Glow, which is this beautiful, like, neutral color. These stripes of like blue and green and rust. I really love the color of it. I muted them down a bit with some leftover Hobbii Diablo in the color Oyster, which I'm glad I did. I really love how muted it came out and how fuzzy it is. I did run out of the Diablo before I did the collar. I don't think it's super obvious, but the color is a little more vibrant in the collar than it is everywhere else. I was scrambling. I went through my little jars of snips and scraps from the past and found lengths of Hobbii Diablo from previous projects that were maybe a yard long to be able to finish the sleeve cuffs the same way with the mohair. As it is now unblocked, it's not very practical. It's definitely huge, and it's supposed to be huge. The pattern calls for 20 inches of positive ease, and this has at least that. But because of the weird shaping, there's like these super slopey shoulders. If you lift your arms at all, the whole thing just comes up. Like the hemline, just, it's kind of silly. Maybe with blocking that will ease out a little bit. But I don't know. I mean, I think the structural flaws that are causing that to happen are seams that are not that flexible and probably won't change. But it's definitely cozy. It's definitely something I can wear around the house if I'm not going to be lifting my arms too much. Probably pretty good to wear for video gaming when you've got your arms in your lap, or knitting for that matter. It's got this cute little pocket. The whole thing is worked with the giant balls of the Hobbii Winter Glow yarn. I used 1.5 balls to make this whole thing because they're very large, oversized yarn balls. And I didn't alternate or anything. I just kind of did it. I love this stripy pattern that it was coming out with naturally. I did alternate balls when I did the little pocket here because I was afraid that the width of the pocket being so much less than the width of the entire garment would make the stripes noticeably thicker in that part. So I did alternate there just to kind of keep the stitches the same height, and I think it did perfectly. I think it worked exactly like I wanted it to. It didn't cause any weird color pooling because of the way that it was set up. So I like that. I'm overall pleased with it. I would definitely never knit it again. It was not a fun pattern for me. And I don't know how much wear I'll get out of it because of the functionality of the sleeves, but I guess we'll find out after blocking. And since both of these yarns have a high acrylic content, I do think that this is predominantly acrylic, and I'm going to try steam blocking before I try wet blocking because I think that will have more of an impact. That's it for finished objects. Oh wait, no it's not. I forgot. Wait, I made some accessories. Hold on. Okay, so I did make these, and I also actually, like, let me talk about, I don't have them here, but for Valentine's Day I made my mom some scrunchies. My mom is my forever Valentine, so my husband and I don't really celebrate Valentine's Day, and we never have, but I always send my mom something, and I made her some scrunchies out of, they weren't even really scrap yarns, just single skeins I had. The red and pink were from various cotton yarns, and the white and purple ones were from Lion brand Trubu, Nubu, or both. I don't really remember. I thought they made a cute little set. They took like a day. I based them off of a pattern, but then kind of didn't use the pattern. I just needed the guidance for the construction of the thing. So I didn't really use the gauge or the needle size or the stitch count from the pattern. I just kind of used it as a guideline for what the finished measurements should be and the construction, because I never made scrunchies before and I didn't realize how they go together. It's really clever. I really like the pattern that I did use, which is, as always, linked in my Ravelry page with everything else under projects. But I also made myself these. We had a very, very cold snap where it was below 0 for a few days, and the mittens that I have are really insufficient. So I decided to make myself some more, and of course, even though these took me like 2 days. By the time I was done with them, the cold was over, but I'll have them in the future. I used the same yarn that I used to make my abstract rose pullover that I showed in the last video. It is the Sewrella DK base, classic DK base in her Soho colorway from the Autumn New York collection, and some leftover Hobbii Diablo in the dusty light blue. And these are called steamed mittens, I think. They come from a pattern book that I love that I've used for a lot of different patterns, and there's still more in there that I want to make. And everything's cafe themed or like coffee themed, so they're steamed mittens because of steamed milk, I suppose. But they have these cute little purl bump patterns that I don't know how easy it is to see on them, but there's a ton of purl bumps and they're super dense at the bottom, and then they kind of disperse and are fewer and farther between as you go up, kind of like steam evaporating. I think they were really fun. They're super potato chippy. It was impossible not to complete a whole mitten in one sitting because you only have so many repeats when the purl bumps are like every other row, and then you only have so many when they're every 4 rows or whatever, and it just seems like the next section is always so close. I can keep going, and both of these I did complete in one sitting, and I think I had so much fun, and they're super warm, and I really, really love them, and I wish I had more opportunity to use them so far. So I guess I did have a little more finished objects than I thought I did. That makes me feel more accomplished. So let's get into some whips. I don't have too many. I kind of discussed this one last time. This is the gift for my sister. I'm not going to talk about it every time, and I'm probably going to set it aside and not talk about it anymore after this one. But last time I had spoken about it kind of conceptually and the idea that I had come up with for how to do it, and I hadn't barely cast on yet. I just had a starting chain because I was waiting for the swivel cords from Knit Picks or Knitter's Pride. I did order them from Knit Picks, but they're from the brand Knitter's Pride, for my Tunisian crochet hook, because it was way too difficult to try to maneuver, you know, the 200 some stitches that I cast on without a swivel cord. And I do love the swivel cord, and it fixed the problem instantly. And honestly, like, I worked on this project for like 3 or 4 days straight when I started because I was very much enjoying it. So where we're at right now, this is 1 month. It's very short, and I realized that when I did my gauge swatch and kind of planned out the whole thing, I didn't think about how the heights of the different stitch designs vary so much, and certainly Tunisian full stitch, which is what this is much shorter than other ones. So other months will be taller because I am switching to a different stitch for a full month at a time, kind of to add some visual interest and texture. And I guess the Tunisian full stitch months are just going to be a little shorter. And I mean, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I don't know how well you can see, but what I did is I started out with honeycomb stitch for 5 rows at the bottom, and that's their wedding day color. So this is going to be a wedding day to first anniversary blanket. So this is their wedding day, and then I did 1 row for each day. And as you can see, the month of September last year was largely the same temperature, very little variation, and it kind of started to get a little cooler as we got up here. And then I've just barely moved into the October, and what I do is for the last day of the month, I'm doing an entire row of Tunisian purl stitch to create a ridge to delineate, and then starting my new stitch for the next month. So I've just barely done the 1 month here, and I'll keep moving. I mean, it's last September through next September, so as of right now I have nearly 5 months of data to work with, so I can't finish it for a while, certainly. Since it's a gift, I don't want to talk about it too profusely online. I don't want her to find out about it, not that I think she watches these videos, but I'm not going to give updates on this every time. I can't finish it anytime soon. I'm inherently going to be working on it through at least next September, probably longer. It's a Christmas gift. I do hope to finish it in the fall so I can work on other things leading up to the Christmas holiday, but this is the start of it. This is where it's going, and I will show you guys again when it's a lot closer to being done. So this one, I've mixed feelings about today. This is a test knit for the Knit Purl Girl. This is her Semper Slipover, the V-neck version that I'm testing. It's going to be out, I believe, at the end of March. I went stash diving to pick my colors, so I don't have any full hanks to show you. Oh, but I did take a photo of the full hanks because it's not very easy to see this beautiful hand-dyed mohair once it's caked up. This beige is some sort of wool camelid nylon blend, I think. It's from Knit Crate. I don't remember exactly which one it is or which colorway, but as ever, I'll put it on the screen. This beautiful hand-dyed silk mohair is from Ashland Yarns. I got it at, I think, the Central New York Fiber Festival that I went to last summer, definitely summer, June. It's like overall a gray, but there is such a beautiful pastel rainbow that mostly shows up on the silk itself and not the alpaca, the mohair. Oh my gosh, where's my brain today? But it's very subtle, but it's beautiful. And I think it's going to be gorgeous. They did work up really well together. So far in my Semper Slipover, I have run into a snag, which is proving difficult for me mentally to move past. Alright, so here's where we are. The construction of this has you do a neck band that is knit double thick with a purl bump in the middle and then fold it over to create like a gorgeous double thick squishy neckline, which I love and I think is going to be great. But I screwed up and forgot to downsize my needles when I was supposed to, and I think I was trying to forge ahead because the collar had taken me a long time to do, and I thought, well, it's just one little needle size, how much difference can it make? But once I folded it over and I had sewed just a couple stitches down, I was like, I think it really did suffer for it. I think it doesn't look how it's supposed to, and I do think I have to rip back and redo the collar. So I've set it aside for a few days because I'm kind of struggling with the fact that I have to do that. And it's so difficult to see now. Okay, let me see if I can kind of jimmy it. So it's the V-neck is still on the needles. It's still a mess, but you can kind of see now how it will look. The body's not done yet, but I only had 2 hanks of each yarn, which is much less than Sophie called for in the pattern. So I think it'll be enough. I honestly do, because I had done, I think, more than half of the garment before I ran out of the first pair. But just to be sure, I'm stopping. When I ran out of the wool in the body, I stopped and cut the mohair, and I'm going to do the neckline and the arm cuffs and everything, and complete absolutely everything before I finish the body because I just want to be sure that I have enough yarn and I don't have to go back and rip anything out. So let me turn it around and see if you can see how gorgeous this mohair is up close, because these pastels are truly just so pretty. I really wasn't sure when I started knitting this if they were coming up. The light in my living room isn't very good, and that's where I do most of my knitting, and as I was doing it I was like, really, this isn't doing this mohair justice. I don't know if I like it. And then once I saw it in natural light in other conditions, when I took it with me somewhere else, and when I'm here in the yarn room, I really, really love it. I think it's beautiful and it does do the mohair justice, and I think I made a good choice. But I'm at a sticking point because I have to rip back this collar, and it's mohair and it was time consuming. So it's a mental hurdle for me to overcome, but I am going to try to do that before we leave for vacation because I absolutely don't want to have to set it down for that amount of time and then come back and rip back and start over after vacation. I think that would be way too much for me to handle. I did cast on this one new thing that I didn't intend to cast on, but we had a last minute obligation that we had to go to in the car last weekend. This was something that I had planned on saving for our road trip for road knitting, but found out very last minute that we had to be somewhere, and it's an hour and a half away, and we had to go in one day, so I knew there's going to be at least 3 hours of car time, and none of my projects were in a state where I could work on them in the car. My slipover's at a point where I had to rip back and redo the neckline. My Wallaby pullover was at a point where I had multiple needles going in the neckline to like finish working around it, and it was way too cumbersome to take in the car, and literally it just, none of them would go with me. So I panicked, and I had already printed out the pattern for this for the road trip. I already knew what yarn I was going to use, and I knew it's a super, super simple pattern that uses one set of needles, and it's literally the most straightforward thing. It's very, very beginner friendly. So I grabbed a tote bag and the ball of yarn and the needles and the printed pattern and just left. And then I did this during that car ride. This is, what is it called? This, I believe this Strikke Cocoon. Yes, Strikke Cocoon cardigan. It's from Tamara and Kelly. I'm not sure. I mean, as always, project page has all the links for the patterns, for the yarns, for everything, all the information that I have. So, this is Bernat Plentiful, which are these giant yarn balls. This one, they're acrylic wool blends. They're mostly acrylic polyester. They're bulky weight. I think this one's the color Linen. Yep. And they're huge. And the whole gimmick, I decided to use it as a center pull. I should not have. It's too toothy and sticky of a yarn for that, and it's creating problems, but I committed for now. Anyway, the whole gimmick is that you can make a whole sweater out of one ball of yarn. It's a big ball. It's lightweight because it's this like mostly acrylic, very floofy synthetic sort of mohair. Yeah, and I just thought this cocoon looks very straightforward. I have 2 balls of this Plentiful in 2 different colorways. I kind of went on this kick a couple weeks ago where I was not working on my knits at the time, but thinking about my knits and thinking about during all this cold weather, I have so many sweater quantities of bulky weight yarn, but I didn't really work through any of them. And I went through Ravelry and spent a bunch of time matching patterns that I have or that I have access to with the different bulky weight yarns that I have and kind of making a plan for how to use them up. And this is what I came up with for this one. And I think it's going to be, you know, a nice around the house sweater, if nothing else. Maybe it'll be nice enough to wear out. But it's just going to be a floofy, slouchy, very simple little cardigan to throw on. And I will bring it with me on our road trip now that I got it started. I haven't read all the way through the pattern, but my understanding is that it is one great big rectangle, and then you kind of do that thing where you fold the sides over to make holes for sleeves, and you pick up stitches to make sleeves, and it creates that like slouchy kind of cocoon. I guess that's why they call it cocoon. I don't know how else to put it. And I think you pick up for like some ribbing around the edges, but other than that, it's a rectangle. Very straightforward, very simple for car knitting, which was my goal, and that's what I'll use it for. I have other stuff that I'm planning on bringing on the road trip, but I'll get to that when I get to it. I think I'm definitely going to do a separate video about the road trip, about my projects that I'm planning, about what I'm going to bring, and definitely the yarn stores that I stop at and everything. And I'm going to use my Instagram stories kind of as a real-time vacation log. I did that last time and just kept adding, and then saved it after the fact as one highlight reel, which was really fun for me because it actually ended up kind of being like a little video album of our trip, which was a nice memory for me to have, and it was easy for me to share with you all and pin there permanently. So I'm going to do the same thing this time. And I think this time, now that I know how much I enjoyed it after the fact, I'm going to put more effort into it. So definitely follow me on Instagram and check that out as I go if you want to follow along with my vacation. And I will probably upload the whole thing here on YouTube afterwards for those who don't have Instagram. All right, that's actually all of my whips that you haven't seen before. But I do have some acquisition. Lion Brand was having a sale. And to be honest, I used to buy a ton of stuff from Lion Brand sales. Like, that's where most of my yarn stash has come from, is sales either at like closeout stores that bought mostly Lion Brand or like mainstream mass market yarns, or directly from places like Lion Brand or Knit Crate when I was buying large quantities during a sale. And that's what I did this time, because every so often they do like an extra sizable % off their already discounted clearance, which is what they did here. So these were pretty cheap. I don't think I have the packing slip, so I don't remember how cheap they were, but looks like I got 5 hanks of this Touch of Silk. They had a lot of stuff on sale. I didn't go for any of the super synthetic stuff or the acrylic stuff because frankly I already have a ton of it and I don't really use it as much. I've been trying to work through it with kind of blankets and stuff, because I think that's where acrylic yarn really shines, is in blankets, because it's washable, because it softens with washing and with use, and it, you know, especially when you have large quantities, that's the best place to use it. But just this time, the couple things I did pick up were at least partially natural fibers. And, you know, like I talked about in my New Year's or Knit Year's resolutions video, excuse me, I forgot my own little portmanteau. I'm trying to make more neutrals. So these are 60% polyester, 20% cotton, 20% silk. This is the colorway taupe. I got 5 hanks of this. It's a worsted weight. It's very soft. I really like it. And I chose the taupe color and the other color I got and more that I'll show you in the interest of making more basics, trying to make more neutral garments, because I know I'm much more inclined to wear garments that are neutrals or basic colors, even though I'm much more drawn to purchasing very vibrant and colorful yarns. So I'm trying to force myself to choose yarns that are neutral because I know I will like the finished product better. So I got 5 hanks of Touch of Silk, and then I got a bunch of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess 7, at least 7 of these Oh Baby organic cotton. And these are thin, these are sport weight, but I've seen some pretty cute crochet projects in the past. I know Evelyn and Peter Crochet definitely has designed a couple free patterns for this. This is the color Tan. That's a neutral. So pretty simple, like I said, but just to kind of expand my options for which neutrals I have. Then I got this kit because it was really cheap. I think it was like $6. And I've never done this before, but it's that like plastic canvas that you kind of embroider with yarn. I know my mother-in-law does a lot of that. She makes a lot of like home decor items and things, but she does a lot of color work and really fancy designs and patterns and stuff. This is for a purse. I believe it's 1 piece of plastic canvas that's the correct size, and then it comes with the yarn you need that kind of looks like a velvety sort of black yarn. And as far as I can tell based on the picture, there's definitely no color work because it's only the black yarn, but it's more of a texture created by the stitch pattern that you use. It kind of looks like diamonds. What is that floor called? It looks like parquet flooring to me, like the way that the stitches are lined up. And it comes with all the hardware and everything to make a whole purse. And I thought, well, you know what? It's different. It's a craft that I haven't done before. It looks like a simple starter version of that craft, and it's very cheap for, in the end, having a purse. So we'll see how that goes. And then the other acquisitions I have are because the other night, so it was late. It was like after midnight, and I was on Instagram, and I saw somebody post about a fiber festival in Rochester, and they were saying it was the next day. So this was after midnight on Saturday. I realized that on Sunday in Rochester, there was a little fiber arts festival called the Tina Turner Knits Fiber Arts Festival, I think. Tina Turner Knits Fiber Festival, something like that. It's a really small one. It was really cute. I decided at the absolute last minute to go. Like I said, I realized it existed after midnight. I woke up at 8 o'clock so I could leave home at 9 to go. It was about an hour-and-a-half drive, but I wanted to get there relatively early so I could get home to my dogs before they were home alone too long. And it was really fun. It is not Tina Turner the singer. There is a woman in Rochester who runs and kind of sets up the whole thing, and her name is Tina Turner. But I had a good time. I spent maybe an hour or so shopping. It was a very small show, but that's what I expected. It was really cute. They had a lot of great vendors, a lot of great selection for how few vendors there were. It was difficult not to spend all of my money. I didn't. I spent some of my money. So, let's have a look. Let's look at the colorful ones first, as I've just expressed how I'm not buying colorful yarn. Let's look at the ones that I did buy. So these were both from Pear Tree Fiber Arts. I looked earlier when I posted about this on Instagram, and I do not believe that they have any social media or anything, but she has an email address listed here, so I suppose I will put that in the description. These are really, really pretty, really soft kid mohair silk blends that were on a sale table. She had this great sale table, and they were 2 for $25. And I was really mostly drawn to this gorgeous pink color, which she called Romance. That's the colorway. This is her Celeste base. My goodness, Celeste base, and the colorway Romance. And it's so pretty. It's so soft. I knew I wanted this hank, but it was like one hank for $15 or 2 for $25. So I decided to get this one, which is the same base, but it's the colorway Stardust. Soft periwinkle purple. It was a good deal. I mean, I love a hand-dyed mohair, and these were super cheap, and they're very, very nice. It feels soft like a kid's silk mohair. I love them, and no regrets about the colors. I'll use them. I mean, they're probably going to end up being some sort of winter accessory. I won't get to them until next year, but if I pair it with a plainer yarn, like an off-white yarn, it's going to just come out so pretty. Okay, this one is the only like colorful one I bought, but sometimes these hand-dyed yarns just grab me and I like can't leave. Like, can you just, I guess I'm in a pink and purple mood yesterday when I went to this yarn show. But this pink and purple and orange and rust, it just hits, man. I couldn't leave without it. This was from a dyer called Alchemist Swim. This is her fingering weight base, and the colorway is Venus at Sea. It's gorgeous. I think it's merino nylon, 80/20. Just beautiful. Who knows what I'll do with it yet, but I couldn't leave without it. It was so pretty. Man. Okay, that's all the drastic colors. And then I have one hand-dyed that's like variegated, right? But they're like neutrals. So does it count? You tell me. This was from, what's her name? Longmeadow Farm. I'm very confused about what this is called. So they had, it was either the Wool Room at Longmeadow Farm or Longmeadow Farm, the Wool Rooms, like possessive. This is gorgeous. This is half Romney wool, half blue-faced Leicester. It's all created in the U.S. There's a mill in Michigan that processes it for them. It says on the label. Super pretty. I was just very drawn to the colors in this one. Again, bound to be a winter accessory, but not anytime soon. And also from her booth, I waffled for a long time because I told myself at this yarn show, if I'm going to buy a sweater quantity of yarn, as I'm always want to do, then it has to be a neutral, because I'm not going to buy some fancy, colorful colorway that I'm not going to wear like I always do. And she had so many beautiful tweeds, but my favorite was her undyed. And as always, it's a little tiny bit cheaper to get the undyed version because she didn't have to put in the effort of dyeing it. She had this in an Aran base that I was really in love with. And she had a sample knit up of the undyed tweed in the Aran base, and it was gorgeous. But to make a sweater my size out of Aran yarn, I would have needed like at least 8 hanks, and I couldn't. That's too much for me right now. That would break the bank. So I instead got the same yarn, but fingering weight. Got the 3 hanks of it. It's a stretch, but I have made a cardigan out of 3 hanks of fingering weight yarn before. I've already chosen a little pattern that I'm going to make this into. And I think I might even cast it out and bring it on our road trip because I'm too excited about it and I really want to do it. But anyway, this says 85 superwash merino and 15% Donegal for the tweed. It's super, super soft. It's super just delightful. The color is gorgeous. It's so neutral and it's going to make such a pretty sweater. I'm very proud of myself for finding a budget-friendly, neutral sweater quantity at a fiber festival. Like, who knew? I have it within me. And the last thing I got at the Fiber Fest was this really cute project bag. I think it's gorgeous. She had a whole bunch. You know, I really want more of the project bags that have this sort of drawstring on top. I especially like the kind that are like this, a tote bag with handles, but they've got that sort of like drawstring muffin top lining to keep everything inside. And she had some like that, but I wasn't really drawn to any of the fabrics that she had made that style of bag out of, and I really, really loved this one. So this is from a seller. Her business name is By Kate with an exclamation point. And as I was looking at and admiring this one, she casually mentioned to me that it's made of vintage fabric. So I had no choice. That was it. You know who I am. So it's really pretty. There's just 2 big pockets inside. I have no idea if you can see this on the camera, but I love it. It's got this pretty green kind of swirly quilter's cotton for the lining and the handles and the base. It's got this really soft, pretty vintage floral on the outside. And I'm sold. And I am probably going to cake up all of these and cast on that sweater that I picked out that I don't remember the name of and pop them in this project bag and bring them with me on vacation, because that's how excited I am about all of this stuff. Alright, I think that's everything. Check back soon. I've got all my road trip stuff coming up. I have 7 local yarn stores flagged on my road trip route that I'm going to try to stop at. And when I do, I hope I can film some footage and show you all the little places that I find along the way. Check out my Instagram if you want to follow along in real time. But in the meantime, subscribe here on YouTube and give it a like if you like. And I hope to see you next time, hopefully with a better mood and a sunburn. Well, not a sunburn, but I don't tan, I burn. So like, I'm so excited for warm weather, guys. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.